How to read and remember this in any book. Your time is one of your greatest assets. It's the one thing that you can't get back. As your brain coach, I want you to get the greatest results and return on your attention. So here are some recommendations on how to get the most out of this book. You can apply this advice toward practically anything you want to learn and read. Let's start with a question. Have you ever read something only to forget it the next day? You are not alone. Psychologists refer to this as the forgetting curve. It is the mathematical formula that describes the rate at which information is forgotten after it is initially learned. Research suggests humans forget approximately 50% of what they learned within an hour, and an average of 70% within 24 hours. Below are a handful of recommendations that will help you stay ahead of the curve. Later, I will share advanced strategies to accelerate your learning and retention in the sections on study, speed reading, and memory improvement, forgetting curve, retention, and elapsed time since learning. Research suggests that our natural ability to concentrate wanes between 10 to 40 minutes. If we spend any longer on a given task, we get diminished returns on our investment of time because our attention starts to wander. For that reason, I suggest you use the Pomodoro technique, a productivity method developed by Francesco Cirillo, based on the idea that the optimal time for a task is 25 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break. Each 25-minute chunk is called a Pomodoro. As you read this book, I suggest that you read for 1 Pomodoro and then take a 5-minute break before continuing. When it comes to learning, the Pomodoro technique works for reasons related to memory, specifically the effect of primacy and recency. The effect of the primacy is that you're more likely to remember what you learned in the beginning of a class, a presentation, or even a social interaction. If you go to a party, you might meet 30 strangers. You are most likely to remember the first few people that you meet unless you've been trained to remember names with my method, which I'll teach you later in this book. The effect of recency is that you're also likely to remember the last thing you learned. At the same party, this means that you'll remember the names of the last few people you met. We've all procrastinated before a test, and then the night before the exams sat down to cram as much as possible without any breaks. Primacy and recency are just two of the many reasons cram sessions don't work. But by taking breaks, you create more beginnings and endings, and you retain far more of what you're learning. If you sit down to read a book over the course of 2 hours without taking any breaks, you might remember the first 20 minutes of what you read. Then maybe you'll experience a dip around the 30-minute mark, and then you're likely to remember the end of what you read. This means the lull in between, with no breaks for assimilation or thinking through what you read, results in a dead space for learning. So take this book 1 Pomodoro at a time so you get the most out of what you read. If you still choose to cram, you'll learn helpful methods in the book to retain the in-between information. Did you know that the very act of reading this book will make you smarter? I realize that's a big claim, but I'm completely convinced that it's true. On one level, it's going to teach you to be smarter through the tools and tactics I share here. But on another level, when you actively read it, you'll form pictures in your mind and you'll make connections between what you know and what you're learning. You will think about how this applies to your current life, and you will imagine how you can use knowledge you're taking in. It promotes neuroplasticity. Oliver Wendell Holmes said, Every now and then, a man's mind is stretched by a new idea or sensation and never shrinks back to its former dimensions. When you read any book, you have the opportunity to stretch the range of your mind, and it will never be the same. Set a timer for 25 minutes right now and concentrate on what you're reading in this book for that amount of time. When your alarm goes off, bookmark this book and close it. Then write down what you learned then within the last 25-minute period. Ciao.